I think we'll probably just go ahead and get started. And as people join, we'll catch them up or pivot. Certainly Wyatt was talking before about how many folks are registered, how many might join. But ultimately, what I know from all of my years in this space is that every interaction is meaningful and it's important. And it doesn't matter if there's 400 people here or 5 or 6 people. So I guess I'll just start off by saying I want to certainly recognize Wyatt's efforts in pulling this together and all the work that Kyle does at Sit Reps to Steer Co. It's been fantastic to watch that catch fire over the last few years and really fill a niche that needed to be addressed. So my name's Liz O'Brien. I'm at Hiring Our Heroes. I'm our executive director. I want to be clear, I am not a veteran, so I have no idea what it's like to transition out of service, but I am certainly a fierce ally. I've been in the space of transition since 2014. And so while I don't have the lived experience, I have a tremendous appreciation for what all of our service members go through when they transition and certainly remain committed to that cause. I think certainly as we dive in today and have what I hope will be a rich discussion, I have really found, especially as I've grown older and more seasoned, and have learned to become really dependent on a close group of female friends, that the more transparent and honest we are, the better opportunities we create for those that are coming alongside us and after us. And so certainly whatever you're willing to share or not share, that's on you. But I'm hopeful that the discussion will be rich and honest and transparent. So certainly want to level set that for everybody on here. For many years, I was a college basketball coach. My husband is still in the Army. We went through a period of time where we moved 7 times in 9 years, and I realized it just wasn't a sustainable career. And I'll share this with you because I used to think I was special and unique, but transition is hard at every stage of life. And so when I was 40, I transitioned from coaching college basketball into workforce development. And so I took the lowest entry point at Hiring Our Heroes. So I'd been coaching college basketball at a wonderful level that I loved. I loved that coach, teacher, mentor, guide piece. And so I was 40 years old, reporting to a 26-year-old who wasn't a veteran or a military spouse. And I took the lowest paying job at Hiring Our Heroes. I think I was made like $44,000 maybe. But I knew felt great purpose in this. And that's something for me, no matter what I do, there has to be purpose tied to it. And so I share that with each of you to know that where our journey is today, I don't know where it's going to end up tomorrow, but believe strongly in the pathways that we create for each other and how we extend a hand back. So since we don't have a large group today, I'd be open to everybody introducing themselves, sharing what branch of service they were in or going back into. Certainly is the case for some rock stars on here. And then where you are in life. Are you student veteran? Are you currently employed? And we can go from there on the discussion. So Allison, I'll start with you.
Great. Thank you, Liz. My name is Allison Murray. I was a Navy vet. I went to the Naval Academy, and then I served as a surface warfare officer. Now I'm a student vet. I'm at Wharton. Yeah, excited for the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jamie, I'll kick over to you.
Sorry, it took me a second to come off mute. I'm Jamie Bromley. I was a surface warfare officer for 8 years. I commissioned through ROTC at Pitt. I crosstowned at Carnegie Mellon. And I'm now a first year at Wharton. So student vet. And I'm happy to talk about, the options about whether you should get all the way out, do the reserves. Happy to talk about that.
I like it. Grace, over to you.
I am a Army vet. I spent 8 years in the Army. I'm a West Point grad. And I decided not to go to business school. I went straight into the workforce. I'm currently an account manager at Cisco, covering their Comcast account. And the connection is my husband goes to Wharton with a lot of the people on the phone here. So
I love it. And when we finish this, I got to connect you to Mona Dexter, who leads military affairs at Comcast. I bet she'd love to learn what you're doing behind the scenes for Cisco. So
Yeah.
Sarah, over to you. I'm playing like the Brady Bunch box game.
Hi, good evening. I'm also a Navy Surface Warfare Officer like Allison and Jamie. I'm approaching 9 years and yeah, so like Wyatt said earlier, I got a full ride scholarship to go to grad school while I was still active duty. So I applied to Wharton, I shot for the moon, somehow got it, and I graduated in 2021. And then I did a follow-on tour in DC doing some HR policy stuff. And now I am about to check into a ship to do a department head tour ride, Navy lingo, but basically like middle management on a ship. So that's my story.
Really cool. Lexi, over to you.
Hi, I'm Lexi. I am a senior in ROTC and I'm commissioning into the National Guard for the Army. I'll be in the DC National Guard as an aviation officer. I'm just here to learn more about business opportunities. I'd love to connect with Grace about getting into tech sales.
Lexi, what school are you at in DC?
Oh, I'm at school in North Carolina at
Oh, in North
UNC
Carolina.
Chapel Hill.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Allison, I'm saving the Army people for last, I think.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hi. Well, good morning, everyone from Malaysia. My name's Allison. I'm currently an active duty captain stationed out in Japan. I am going through the round 2 application process for business school, so I have some interviews coming up. And I'm also applying to Hiring Our Heroes. So I'm hoping that I can be in the 2402 cohort. But really nice to meet everyone, and thanks to Wyatt for organizing this.
Okay, so email me after I know somebody. We'll make sure you get in there. And
Okay,
also,
thank you.
Allison, we are heading to Japan in like a week and a half. So all of HOH is coming over there. I don't know what part you're in, but can certainly connect you to some folks as we come over to host some events over there.
Okay, great. Yes, I didn't know that you were hosting any events in Japan. I live about an hour outside of Tokyo.
Oh, okay. I will find out when and where and see if we can't get you connected. So cool. And then, for me, I'm saving best for last with Kate because she's rock star Army. And years ago, when I was running a company called FLG, we wanted to hire her, but timing wasn't right. And then I've been watching her rise along the last few years. So over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Liz. Hey, everyone. It is so cool to be here. It's just such an awesome room to have so many awesome women from service. And Wyatt, thanks for hosting this and helping put it on. Like Liz mentioned, I was Army vet, a little over 6 years active duty, transitioned out. My husband's still active duty. So now on the military spouse side of things, I got out. I did a couple things here and there, kind of living the military spouse life, just trying to find work wherever we were at. And then I ended up doing my MBA online with UNC. So go Heels, Lexi. And now I'm a recruiting manager at a staffing agency that helps facilitate connection for transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses to corporate clients. So like Liz, I'm really drawn by the purpose, and being in this community and giving back is really important. And also just trying to connect with other female veterans is always such a fun, exciting thing. So I'm really excited for this discussion and happy to be here.
Awesome. And I love that we have people all over the world, of course, because why wouldn't we? So I know some folks are in wild time zones right now as well. So appreciate you joining at whatever time it is where you are. I'm really fascinated, by the difference that happens when you transition from the military into either student veteran or workforce, and then add to it being a woman veteran and what that experience is like. And so I'd love, Allison, if you're willing to share a little bit about what that transition felt like culturally. Like what were the cultural differences as you moved from military onto the other side, and some of those challenges, and we can share from there.
Yeah. So I guess like reflecting back, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school.
Me too.
Very
I
nice.
love it.
So I went from a very like all female environment to the Naval Academy, which was like a big fraternity, to then my ship, which was there's probably 25-30% women on board. And then yeah, coming to business school where Wharton's 50-50, which is definitely refreshing. So yeah, I think transitioning out definitely felt like I was still had that I'm in the man's world mindset. I think definitely speaking with some like networking either via cold LinkedIn messages or even through recruiting within internships or full-time roles. I've definitely had to speak with more male vets than female, and I think I embrace that, but it definitely is challenging. I feel like sometimes guys have that, oh yeah, we got this, or kind of like bro-y type of interaction, whereas I didn't feel that way sometimes. And yeah, I think just trying to relate as much as possible, that veteran shared experience, I think has been helpful. And then transitioning overall, yeah, definitely a regimented environment to more of, you make your decisions on your own, find your clothes every day. I think that's like the hardest part for me still is picking out what to wear every day. But yeah, just like the world's your oyster at this point, I think, and just embracing that. I mean, I've been out for a year and a half now, and I still have to remind myself that, these are my decisions now. This is my career path. And I need to make what's the best decision for me. So.
I love the part about still trying to figure out what you're going to wear and then transitioning, from a very bro culture to 50-50. Did you find that you've had to moderate the way you communicate? And this is for everybody on here, as you've transitioned out from the military into workplace or student veteran life, how in the way that you communicate with others, has that had to change the way you deliver messages or have conversations or provide feedback?
I'm still working on this. I think my personality is very direct. Definitely come off as maybe blunt at times. I still think I'm working on that. I think some of that is probably still my Navy SWO mentality. But yeah, I've definitely tried to adjust that to certain still work. I have a coach now with school, and that's something I'm trying to work on. But
Yeah, I love it. Does anyone else want to jump in around some of the challenges in terms of communication as you have transitioned? And also, has it gotten easy? If you went military to student veteran to workplace, right? Has that been different? Or Sarah, in your case, you're going military to student veteran back to military. I'm really fascinated by the communication cadences.
Yeah, very similar to Allison's experience for sure. I think I came off a little bit intimidating to others, and I don't know if it was just the way, the Navy culture, the military in general, just we don't have a lot of time to get our point across sometimes. So learning how to communicate and I don't know, without that sense of urgency, I think it shocked me because I would be working on a project and I'd be like, oh my God, we're taking so much time to just go through this one point, and this seems such a minuscule thing to me. Why are we still talking about this? But just kind of learning, how to, openly discuss things that were like new to me too, because I didn't have I was like a history major in college. I kind of jumped into a brand new, like, finance or entrepreneurship classes that I took that I had never, even thought I was going to take, 8 years ago. So just on top of learning about new topics and then how to communicate about them in a different way was something, yeah. And then now I'm going back into, more of the military mindset. I will say I've thought about this extensively because I think I'm going to get to my ship and I'm going to in reverse what I experienced, why when people were like, oh, why are they drawing this out so long? I think some of the people on the ship are going to think like, why is she being so um, not careful about the word choices that I make, but just more like thoughtful on how I'm communicating. Whereas in the military, it's just like, just say how you feel. And in corporate world, it's not like that. So yeah, just learning how to balance that, yeah, is going to be interesting, but it's definitely a thing.
It is definitely a thing, and I can tell you in general, it's definitely a thing also just in how women deliver messaging in the corporate workplace, and how it's received. Most of the people I'm surrounded by, and that each of you are probably surrounded by, are accustomed to operating in very direct environments. But there is often a perception based on how women deliver messaging that's very direct, and often find that I've even been on the receiving end. Like, we'd love if you could moderate your how you are providing feedback and information, but then in parallel to that, listening to my colleagues that are male delivering very similar direct messaging, but received in very different ways. And I've always gone back and forth in if I'm providing direct feedback that is intended to help somebody grow, and then being forced to moderate how I am. So it is, it's a challenge that exists across the workplace in general. Grace, I know that you transitioned directly into the workforce. How has that been for you? One, knowing that your husband's on the student veteran side, you're going directly into the workforce. How do you balance those two dynamics, which really are different, but both going through transition at the same time?
Yeah, so I transitioned about a year and a half ago, and my husband did as well at the same time. I would say for communication, um, obviously things are much more direct in the military, and I think that being, a woman in the military, um, it's expected that you're direct, just like your male counterparts. Um, when you're, in that workforce, I think that it's almost less of a equal playing field because women are not typically direct, whereas in the military they are. And so I have found, for example, my manager, he's a very direct guy, which I'm very used to. So it's kind of a comfort zone for me, but a lot of other people who interact with him will ask me, "Oh, how do you like working for Dave? Is he an okay boss to work for?" And I just laugh because I've had terrible, terrible bosses in the Army, so nothing could compare. But I definitely I definitely have had to sort of adjust the way that I go about communicating into a little bit less direct of a manner. And uh, it's taken some time to get used to. In terms of my husband, I think that going to business school and going straight into the workforce are very different.
Yeah.
I started working with a team and almost have not as much of a sense of purpose as I did in the Army, because I think that's really hard to find again. But I'm not in another transition period. And so for my husband, he's in, this 2-year transition period where you don't have a job and it's sort of your job to find a job. So I think that comes with its challenges as well. But yeah, I mean, different types of transitions for both of us, but it's been going pretty well so far. So
Glad
happy
to
that we
hear.
made the transition. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you could both do it at the same time.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
Jamie, I'd love to just dig in a little bit about your experience around transition. And are there any pieces from your time in the military that you felt helped prepare you well for this transition? And during that transition, are there any new skills that you're coming out with since you've left the military?
Sure. I think my road out of the military was a little different in that I stayed for some bonus time after my contract. So we owe, at least for the surface warfare community, we owe 5 years. And then I stayed an additional 3. And I did that somewhat intentionally. Not only is the timing good for GI Bill benefits, which I knew that maybe someday I'd want to take advantage of. But I also knew that we have opportunities to do a lot of interesting shore duty jobs, which are essentially office jobs. And I thought that I would benefit from that, like some normalcy after, like months and months of sea time. So I went to the least normal office building in the world, the Pentagon.
Oh no.
But the good news is the Pentagon at the end of the day is very corporate. It is just a lot of high-level managers and their teams, and we're all talking about, budgets and just very like corporate world things. It just looks a little different. So I think that really benefited me to kind of like get out of my coveralls, like our dirty like onesies that we wear, and like get on like a clean, crisp uniform every day, and like the communication style there was a bit gentler as well. The ship can be a little, as they've been alluding, and they've been very polite about it, but like when they say direct, like it's abrasive. And the Pentagon, it's maybe a little softer. You're talking to like flag officers and general officers, like you're not like swearing. So I think that like helped me transition a bit. And then I also did some time on the Hill as part of our legislative affairs staff. And that was like if the Pentagon was like a softer version, that was like the most soft. I mean, I'm now communicating with members of Congress. So I think that really helped me. And I was also in civilian clothes. So that really was like the next step in that. It's like, okay, I'm dressing myself every day. It's maybe not corporate speak, but it's very, very soft. It's very indirect. So I think I kind of like, and it wasn't intentional, it just fortunately worked out this way. I kind of very incrementally, like culturally shifted myself away from the Navy. But that doesn't mean that like coming to Wharton was the easiest thing in the world either. I still was very much within that Navy bubble. And so I had to kind of reckon with some of the stuff that Allie and Sarah have been talking about too. Just kind of like having my own schedule, my own priorities, my own personal style outside of like business wear. So that, there's been other things too that I've worked through. But yes, I think I'm really fortunate in that I kind of gently pulled away from the fleet step by step. And I think along the way, I kind of gained more and more, I don't know if skills is the word I would use, but I just kind of like got more adjusted as time went on.
I love that it was incremental, right? Like it wasn't just one big transition, and you had the opportunity to slowly peel it back. And I thank you for sharing that being on a ship and what you experienced. Language is abrasive, right? Like that is phenomenally helpful. I think also when you leave the confines of this discussion, or folks that have shared experiences with you, to be able to say, hey, I was in a place where this was abrasive, right? And that's how we communicated and we operated. And this is where I am. I find telling our stories, whoever you are, wherever you are, becomes unbelievably powerful as you try and connect with folks, whether you're student veteran or a workplace. And I personally love to hear about that, because for me, it's always an opportunity to learn. And I don't think I've stopped learning every step of the way. And Kate, if you are up for it, I'd love to drag you into the conversation, because for the years that I've been watching you from afar, and that we've had some opportunity to cross paths, and having the chance to work with some of your classmates, and watching their transition, where they were the service member, transitioned out, or service member, and then taking on a role as a military spouse. I'm personally curious, if you're up for asking it, how you have balanced being the service member and then being technically viewed probably in everyday life as a military spouse living in Panama, and what that experience has been like. Because for me, it seems like such a fascinating dynamic to navigate. And so if you're up for sharing, I'd welcome it.
Sure.
And if you're not,
No, I
if
am.
they
And
could find.
honestly, I just appreciate that so much, Elizabeth. And something you said, Jamie, about finding like your personal style. Like let's talk like clothes and style is one thing you discover as you come out of the military. But and it's crazy just what you're touching on, Elizabeth, and that point that stuck with me with Jamie, like my biggest challenge coming from the military was like finding who I was, like who am I, right? And I think for, you know, whether you're an academy grad or you went through ROTC as a female, and maybe this is just me, but you kind of come into a persona of who you are in the military and who you feel like you have to maybe become to be successful. And maybe that's becoming more direct. Maybe it's becoming like being part of the bros, or like acting in a way that you feel like is going to help you gain success, or help you to just feel like you're part of that. And I think that was what was a shock for me transitioning out, where, you know, my husband and I were both academy grads. We were both active duty. I went towards a selective program in the Army, the Doctor of Physical Therapy program through Baylor. I was in the program. I was doing really well. And we became pregnant with our second child. And unfortunately for me, the schoolhouse wouldn't allow me to continue. They said, you have, basically my option was, if I wanted to continue, I had to start over. And I was 3/4 of the way through the program. I only had our residency left, which was 8 months on site. And thank the Lord, honestly, it was like what was meant for our family. But at that time, it was devastating. I had worked so hard to get into the program. I had come so far, and all of a sudden it was just basically taken from me. And I got out. I put in my packet and I got out. And that was a huge moment for me. Obviously, I was going through a lot of change. It's something I've been working for, and now I'm a military spouse. My husband was special forces, and so lots of deployments. And like the support that you had to give to your spouse, as you know, special forces and all deployments, like I went full spouse mode, and it was like I wasn't working, I was taking care of the kids, I was doing all the FRG things, like complete 180 from the life I had prior to getting out. It was a huge culture shock, but I feel like in that I really was able to find space and find like who I was and what I was passionate about, like, and who I was at the core of me, aside from being in the military, aside from some of those pieces too. But it is a real challenge. You know, we all live those different lives of when we're on active duty, or if you're dual military, like how you work together as a couple, and like prioritizing careers and things like that. And I feel like anytime I speak with any females transitioning out of the military, I always kind of come back to that. What was the most challenging thing for me is like leaving space to find who you are, what you're interested in, and being free to really discover whatever that is. Maybe you want to go be a yoga instructor after you leave the military. Like, go do that. Find what fills your cup and what makes you passionate, and having the freedom to literally choose whatever it is that you want to do, and going towards that. Complete tangent. I feel like I went completely off what your question was, but like what Jamie said about finding your personal style, like that stuck with me, and just finding out like who you are and what drives you. So.
Hey, thank you for your honesty. Like that is unbelievably gut wrenching to me as I'm listening to you tell your story, and you're in where you want to be, and that you don't have control over how the military decides you're going to move forward, and certainly in a situation that a male colleague would never find themselves in. But I know tangentially from where I sit, it makes sense that you are spending your time in recruiting, and the empathy that has to go into staffing and taking time to understand people. And certainly I know from our side of the house, probably our community is better for where you are in creating pathways for folks. So I appreciate your honesty and your transparency. You hit a bit on, you know, partnering with your husband and throwing yourselves into that. For anybody else that's on here with a partner, would you be willing to share about what that process has looked like? And I don't know, I know Grace has a partner. I don't know if anybody else does besides Kate, but how you've navigated that, and if there are any lessons learned or transparency there. Nobody else?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I can
Go ahead, Grace.
I can talk a little bit about it. So we had our first daughter when I was in the Army, and the last job that I had in the Army, I was the commander of jungle school in Hawaii. And so very long hours, really, really fun job. I loved it. But I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning to wake my daughter up, to bring her to daycare by 5:30, to get to work by 6. I wasn't picking her up till 6 p.m. And so that's tough to sustain, and to visualize sustaining that throughout a career, and to imagine, us alternating 9-month deployments throughout 20 years just seemed um, not ideal. So we that, along with not wanting to do the jobs that were lined up for us next in the Army, we decided to transition out. And we were fortunate in that, the stars sort of aligned for us, and that, my husband got into Wharton. I have an account manager job that's hybrid here, so I'm in person and remote. But in the transition, moving all the way from Hawaii to Philadelphia is definitely tough when you're, potty training a toddler, and living in hotels. And so that was definitely a very rough transition. And as you can imagine, a 2, almost 3-year-old doesn't do very well moving from Hawaii to Philadelphia, having to wear pants and a jacket for the first time ever. So yeah, but I mean, I think I'm fortunate in that, my husband's a student, so his flexibility, he has a lot more flexibility than I do in terms of schedule. And we have 2 kids now. So, if one of them gets sick, or, I have a dinner, or I have to travel for work, he's able to handle things at home. So, when he gets a job after business school, and I'm working, I'm sure that balance is going to be a little different. And it's just another transition for us that we're going to have to figure out.
I feel like it's a continuous work in progress. And I always think about, before we had kids, I didn't know how easy life was. And then you have to
Yeah.
balance all the things
Yeah.
with these little humans who can't communicate. So, I
Yeah.
see Maxine joined, and then, so welcome. Feel free to pipe in at any time if you have questions, but I think I'd love to turn to Lexi, who you're just kind of navigating ROTC and your future path, and Allison, as you're getting ready to potentially transition out. Do you have any questions for the women on here who have already gone through parts of what your future could look like?
Yeah, I hopped on here, and Wyatt had mentioned you don't know what you don't know, and I'm feeling that right now. I didn't have a LinkedIn until like a month ago. So I am really figuring out everything, and just like how to craft a resume per each job, and just different ways to make applying go faster, and which vetting companies. I was applying to companies that turned out to be like MLMs or kind of scams. And so it's just not having anyone really in my close friend group that has gone guard. All of my friends have gone active duty. So I'm like sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I think I want to go into tech sales, but I don't know how to do that. And I'm very grateful. I have a boyfriend who owns a business, and he's very smart about these things. He's looking to get his MBA, and he helps me, but I also want to build a community outside of him that can help me through this process.
Lexi, I'd love to certainly extend the community that we have at Hiring Our Heroes. All we do is employment opportunities for veterans, military spouses, military connected community. I'd say we have a pretty robust pipeline of employers. So if you want to connect following this, certainly happy to carve time out and get you connected
That's great.
to the companies and organizations that are in our pipeline, of
Awesome.
course.
Thank you.
And I will tell you, National Guard and reservists are a tremendous topic of conversation in that building that Jamie ended up in. Certainly, how do we better serve our reserve and National Guard and make sure they have career paths and not just employment opportunities? So it's definitely a top of mind topic. Allison, I don't know if you had any questions for the ladies that are on here, or can certainly move on with other discussion points, but just want everybody to know at any time, feel free to have conversation or ask questions. For the group, I'd love to throw out there, what was the most important resource that you were able to leverage as you were either transitioning out or going back in and back out, that, you know, if you could share with folks to use. I know one of our great partners that we champion all the time is ACP, where they will match you with a corporate partner to really mentor and guide you through the process as you're looking for employment.
Yeah, I just
I actually do have a question
Oh, rock
for
on.
yeah, thank you for the ladies in business school or who just graduated from business school. How did you connect with other women? Because I have, you know, done a lot with each of the schools that I applied to connect with the veterans groups, but what I've really found is that you know, I have a lot of great West Point classmates and some other folks that have really been very helpful, but I really have not been able to connect with female veterans or even really other women. How do you go about doing that?
Do you want to take that, Allie, as our prez?
Sure. Yeah, I would just say, you know, if there's a form for the school to connect with the club in general, if there's an ability to ask to speak to a female vet, that's helpful. Or if you set up like an initial call, you can, you know, at the end be like, is there anyone else you could connect me with? Looking to speak to a female vet. I know there's not many across all the schools. I've definitely tried to, you know, connect as much as possible. I think LinkedIn is also another place to connect as well. And then beyond that, you know, if you can't find a female vet, maybe talking to another female classmate that maybe they were in their same learning team or in class or group project together. And someone might have a, you know, better perspective than a male vet would. But anything to add, Jamie?
I think, yeah, unfortunately, there's just not that many of us. I think it's like school dependent. But for example, in my year at Wharton, there's only 4 of us. So yeah, sometimes you might just be doing some LinkedIn searching. But I really do think all of the vets clubs at all of the schools are very invested in making sure that they're the best resource they can be to perspectives. And I would just say, and whoever you're connecting with, I would just request, if it's not a woman that you're connected with, I would just ask them to connect you with one of their female classmates. Business school students love to make a connection. So if you ask for it, they'll do it.
Have you ever come across, for everybody on here, any type of virtual resource group for female veterans that are student veterans or female veterans in the workplace?
I think of outside of like LinkedIn or Facebook. I know there's like a couple of Facebook groups, but not specific. Like Service Academy graduates, the women have a Service Academy
Yeah.
women page. I know that's a great forum too. But I don't. That's a good point, Liz. Like an actual group for female student veterans.
Yeah. I wonder,
Maybe we could
I'll have
start
to
one.
ask Jared over at SVA if they have anything working, but they tend to serve more of the undergraduate population than anyway, maybe that's something we need to create.
Allison, I know at
definitely.
UNC, for our MBA program, we created a Facebook group for the female grads. And so every class year, they just keep adding more and more females to it. And it's a really great forum. And that's vets and like everyone, all females from the program together. And something that they do, and this might be something that's done across many different forums and groups as well, but they have a personal board of directors that they meet every month, and it's anybody can join. It's really just like a discussion just like this, where you just come and talk about different things. So if your school that you get into has one, like a group, or maybe you could even suggest to create one, that's a really great forum. And it's just a Facebook group that they put together, and they try to meet once a month.
So I'm laughing because all my kids are coming home from different practices right now, and I can hear the dog barking. So if you hear chaos in the background, there's 3 kids, a dog, and I'm pretty sure my husband just roamed in, and they're probably going over wrestling practice. So if there's a racket, just bear with me. I'm curious for everybody on here. I don't believe there's any such thing really as work-life balance, right? I've found during my life. As I look back, there are times like where I'm really crushing work, or I'm really crushing the mom game, or I'm crushing the wife game, but I'm never doing all the things really, really well. And so for folks that are on here, I'm curious how you are working through prioritizing, feeling like you're successful. Any hacks or tricks that you've found where you feel like you are able, in theory, to balance all of the pieces that you're juggling? Or maybe nobody's mastered it yet, because I know I haven't, but I'm open to ideas.
I guess the only thing I can think of for that is setting my day up for success. I guess since the new year, I've tried to work out before school starts. Some days it's like during the lunch, but usually in the mornings before school, and like meal prepping to like set my week up. So it's kind of on autopilot as much as possible. So I think those like small wins definitely make me more confident to, reach out to someone or follow up on an email or return the phone call or, XYZ networking wise. And yeah, I hope to continue that in my future career.
Awesome. Oh, Jamie, did you have something to add? Sorry, so you
I
come
mean,
off.
it's nothing like profound, but I just like live and die by my Google Calendar. Like if it's not in the calendar, it's not occurring.
Yeah.
So I just like whatever organization system you have to like, and you know what this is? This is from the ship. We have something called the plan of the day. This is so embarrassing, but like it really did so much good for me. Like it's this piece of paper and everything that's going on the ship for that day is all written down in one place. And I would like mark off all the stuff I had to do. And it just like kept me sane. And I think that's what has kind of translated over to my school life. And I suspect like my internship this summer. Yeah, Google Calendar, live and die by it.
Amazing. I agree. There was once I forgot to pick a kid up, and it was solely because the pickup wasn't on the calendar. So live and die by it also, for sure. I'm curious around, so I think mentorship and advocates are unbelievably powerful, especially for women. I'm curious, for me, I have 3 really solid mentors in my life, and then I have advocates, people who I work with that I know will speak my name in rooms that I'm not in, help make sure I have opportunities for growth and promotion. Curious if each of you have already identified a pathway to a mentor, or have a mentor, have an advocate, or need to find a resource to facilitate that, because I think over the last 30 years, I've learned it is one of the most powerful and effective tools in my tool belt.
I can go first. I have a mentor through the Naval Academy mentorship program. Basically, voluntary, matches you with an alumni. And he has been extremely helpful. We met when I had like 2.5 years left in the Navy. And so he kind of helped me through some deployments and also transition to business school. He did a lot of mock interviews with me for preparing. And then even now with the career search, it's definitely invaluable. Talking about, oh, this offer, this type of company or this type of industry, and getting his insight since he's been in the civilian world for a while. I think that shared connections is extremely important. I definitely prioritize finding a veteran as my like primary mentor. And then I think advocacy going forward. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm interested in. I would love to learn more about, how you find that within a company for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that comes with time when you're working in a company or an organization, wherever you land, and then starting to understand or build relationships intentionally around people that can pull you along. I know to this day, I still haven't at least had an interview that someone didn't facilitate. So I've never had a cold interview. It's always been a warm handoff or a foot through the door based on a network that I have, or an advocate that put my name into the hat, certainly on me to get the job. But I can't think of a time where that circle wasn't helpful and wasn't important. as I've moved along. So we're at about 9:20. We have about 10 minutes left, or 13 minutes if we're doing actual accurate math. Are there any topics of discussion or things that you want to dive into that you feel like we haven't covered, or need to be more transparent about, or opportunity or things that you've been navigating personally that you want to throw to the group before we start to wrap up?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for y'all that transitioned out of the military and into the civilian workforce, what do you think were your most valuable skills from the military that you were able to kind of put on your resume or talk about in interviews about like, hey, I learned this through the military and that's why like it's super applicable to this job or something like that? Because I'm trying to cultivate my interview skills and figure out what skills I already have through ROTC and the National Guard that I can show to employers as like, hey, I've actually developed this, even though it's not corporate lingo.
Yeah, so I can I can answer that a little bit. So I transitioned from the Army into a sales role. And so translating, what I did in the Army to, what that sort of verbiage looks like in whatever job I'm applying to. Specifically, I think sales is a fairly easier translation, just because you can sort of frame anything that you did in the Army, whether it's advocating for your unit or convincing somebody to use your support in a certain way, as you selling them some sort of aspect of your capabilities. So I think I did that for my resume. And then for prepping for interviews, I came up with a bunch of different examples that I had of, um, how I convinced people like to use my support in a certain way, how I convinced, a group of people to adopt a certain strategy. And I just came up with a bunch of different narratives and had that sort of in my back pocket to answer a myriad of questions that they would ask in an interview.
Anyone else want to add to that? Lexi, oh, go ahead, Kate. I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to your point, Elizabeth, about mentorship and like the networking aspect of transitioning or job searching is finding people that are in that career field, industry that you're interested in, and just talking to as many as you can and asking, what are some of the skills that you think are successful in this career field? What are just asking all the questions you can. What do you like about this career field? What do you don't like about it? And really finding out from someone that's in the position what they talk about and how they talk about their job can help you to understand how you could translate your military skills into the corporate speak of that said position. It kind of just helps you to dive into that world without actually being in it by way of closeness of speaking with those people. So American Corporate Partners, amazing for finding that like one-on-one mentorship. And then I utilized Veterati a lot, just finding people in specific industries. And you can connect as many times as you want with as many people for quick 20 to 30-minute conversations to try to just gather as much information as possible.
Super helpful. Lexi, feedback we get from a lot of employers, don't put leadership on your resume. It doesn't mean anything to them, but really identify your soft skills that you feel like you have obtained through ROTC, National Guard, etc. I'd love to go around and ask everybody to share what your long-term goals are. I think it would be a great way to wrap up as we start to think about what the future looks like. And then everybody on here will have an idea where each person's going and how your futures can continue to cross paths. So Allison, I'll start with you.
My dream job would probably be C-suite of a Fortune 100 company.
Awesome. Jamie, over to you.
Yeah, I'm hoping to just do something kind of broad in the private sector. I'm going to be interning in a general management role at Vanguard this summer. But my ultimate love is policy and government. So I'd love to go back to DC at some point. But I need to get out of there for a little while first.
I feel you on the crushing the soul sometimes. So, Grace, over to you.
I think that's a tough question. I think finding a good balance between, our family and both managing high demand careers is probably a long-term goal of mine. But specifically, I'm not sure yet.
Work in progress always. Sarah, how about you?
Yes. So I fell in love with marketing when I was at Wharton, and I have a dream of working at P&G one day. I'm from Cincinnati and they're headquartered there, so it'd be really nice to go back to my hometown. And then ultimately, after a few years of getting, some insight, knowledge, and using that not as like a crutch, but just getting as much like knowledge out of them as possible. Probably starting my own product and owning my own company. And that's something I never thought I would ever think about before I went to business school. So, yeah, it just makes me happy to think about and motivated. So,
Do you have a thought on what kind of product you want to, or what?
I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know yet, but that's the feeling and I'm gonna stick to it and yeah, we'll figure it out from there. But
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's so neat how you said, before you went to business school, you never even would have thought about it. And so where we were 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 5 years ago, I think always the nonlinear progression that happens through learning becomes unbelievably powerful, and being open to and receptive to that process. Kate, I'm going to kick to you around long-term goals.
Yeah, so I'm like kind of on Grace's fence of like wanting to find that work-life balance. We have 4 kids. My husband's still active duty. So part of me wants to just redo a bus and live on the road with our kids and just have that be our life's goal. But knowing we have to keep making money, I love working in the recruitment space when it comes to military spouses, veteran communities. So long-term goal would be to probably lead a military hiring program at a large Fortune 100 company, or continue building, an agency that does that on behalf of companies. It's just really rewarding to be in this space, and I love it. So that, or living in a bus with my kids and my husband, either one.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Could go either way, right?
I'd go.
Allison, as you're inching closer to transition, do you have any long-term goals?
Yes. So, well, my short-term goal is to hopefully go into consulting. And I'm hoping that will really kind of define my path for later in my life. But I'm really interested in the healthcare space. So I'm a medical service corps officer. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for growth in healthcare in the United States. I just don't know what industry specifically I want to work in yet. So I'm hoping that consulting will help basically define that framework for me.
Interestingly enough, we've been hosting convenings for healthcare because they are so desperate in a positive way that they want access to military veteran community talent. So they actually came to us, and we're heading into our second of what will be 4-series discussion. This one in early March will focus on providers, but certainly as you move into school and et cetera, please stay in touch, because I think we have one tremendous partners on the consulting side. There's some great research out there that Deloitte did around healthcare. I can send it to you, but lots of potential on the healthcare side as well in consulting. So Lexi, it looks like you are last woman standing. And I know that you're kind of at the beginning of your journey, but long-term goal, would love to hear it.
I really don't know. I'd love to pursue my MBA within the next 5-ish years. I need to tackle flight school first, which is a 2-year endeavor. But I'm not totally sure. I think owning a business would be really cool. Sarah, I'm behind you on the whole marketing. I'd love to have a brand. I have no idea what it would be though.
Amazing. Well, I hope the hour that we spent together was helpful. I hope it gave you some new connections that you didn't have before you started here or started this discussion. I hope you will consider certainly me to be a resource, hiring our heroes. I don't think we are the answer to everything. We'll certainly hand you off to any introduction or resource that you want. And that doesn't have to be now. You can look us up 5 years from now and find somebody that will be helpful. And certainly want to share to each of you, your service certainly continues to inspire me. I know I have a rising senior who wants to serve, and now looking through the lens as expect a soon to be mother of a woman going into service. Just greatly appreciate the pathway that you're paving for the next generation as well, and your willingness to share your stories and your through your service for the next generation. Really appreciate it. So thank you for your time, your energy, and I hope our paths cross again. And thank you, Wyatt, for facilitating this and setting it up. Good luck.